we follow the first book of the Bible, the first man and woman were placed in a garden. It is also the ideal for all of us that we should make our surroundings like a garden.
I was a principal co-author of HB 9105, an act promoting integrated urban agricultural development.
We have a duty to provide leadership and example. The more we collaborate, the more we harmonize our directions, our strategies, the stronger each one becomes.
Among ginatanom ang palya, ning agbate, kamuti, sitaw, malunggay. Nakaharvest mi dito kakuha mi sa among pagkaon. Katong sobra sa kanang pagkaon sa ato kaugalingon, ang sobra na ibenta sa kay madaot man tadi man ato pagkaon sa ato supply lang sa pamilya.
Among ginatanom is eggplant or talong in Bisaya, and then nasad mi okra, bato, and then we also have petchay. Ang benepisyo sa pag-garden is gaka-apply ni namo, gakatudlo namo sa pamilya kung sa mga basic nga gardening techniques such as magamit og organic materials, and then sa mga pod sa mga classmates gaka-enjoy namo.
Tungod ni ana sa mga pag-garden is nakahibong mig family diri sa among school sa among campus, nakaka-interact mi sa among mga co-students nga di lang kay sa pag-garden kundi makakuan sa mi sa nakabuild mi og family sa diri sa school. Benefits sa among family kay ang among mga practices diri sa school is among ma-apply sa among balay din sa among community, amo silang ma-influensyahan ngayon ani mag-garden ta.
Good morning, everyone. I hope the weather is bright and sunny wherever you are. Welcome to Perspectives on Urban Farming and Community Gardens. This event is brought to you by the Ateneo de Manila University, Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines. We're excited to see that this event has generated a lot of interest, and we have quite a number of participants with us here on Zoom and also watching the live stream on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Abby Favis, and I will be moderating this session. Before we start, let's just go over some reminders and house rules. Kindly note that this program is being live streamed via YouTube, and the link is posted on your screen, and Kin has also posted the link in the chat. Please help us encourage more people to join in the conversation by sharing this video with your respective social media networks. Please be reminded also that all participants are muted automatically as they enter the meeting room, but throughout the meeting, kindly type any comments or questions that you might have in the chat box. There will also be an evaluation survey given at the end of the session. Requests for e-certificates will be made available to those who have accomplished the evaluation form. So let's begin our event with an opening prayer to be given by the Director of the Office of Social Concern and Involvement, Ms. Ophalie Alzona Pornella. Ms. Of, please lead us in prayer.
put ourselves in the most holy presence of God. I would like to begin by inviting all of you to spend a moment of silence for former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III, who passed away yesterday. For those who wish to do so, you may now do the sign of your faith. Dear God, we thank you for gathering today members of different universities, civil society groups, organizations, and communities for this online community dialogue. We thank you for each mind and heart that fills the presence of the Zoom room today. We thank you for the blessing of our most distinguished speakers who will guide us in this community dialogue. We pray that you would deepen our comprehension, broaden our thinking, and transform our understanding of urban farming and community gardens, and how these could serve as pathways to address some of the challenges that we continue to face as a nation: food insecurity, malnutrition, and hunger among marginalized communities in the country. Take what we have prepared, bless and multiply our efforts as only you can. Guide us that our intentions align with your will. Remind us what we set out to accomplish and remind us of why we are doing these. Lord, we also pray in a special way for our people who continue to suffer under the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic. Strengthen us, embrace us, and walk with us as we continue to approach each day in faith, trusting in the truth of your goodness towards us. And so we ask all these in your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Miss O, for that sobering but comforting invocation. At this point, we would like to now call on Dr. Randy Tuaño, Chairperson of the Department of Economics at the Ateneo de Manila University and Program Manager of the SDGs at the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, for the opening remarks and to give us the context and background of our session today. Sir Randy?
Thank you, Abby, and good morning to all. On behalf of the organizers of the event, the Ateneo de Manila University, the Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on perspectives on urban farming and community gardens. This webinar grew out of the discussions after these same organizers undertook the April 16 online independent dialogue for UN Food Systems Summit 2021. Where more than 300 participants from different academic institutions, civil society groups, international organizations, and government agencies attended. During the dialogue, it was agreed that participants would organize their own dialogues and meetings in their different groups and communities in order to deepen their understanding on challenges based on food systems frameworks, raise awareness of food security issues, share innovative practices that can contribute to achieving SDGs, and promote continuing dialogue and reflection on these issues among different stakeholders. In meetings that we undertook after the dialogue, one of the ideas that came about was how should universities and other education institutions support initiatives by the growing number of community pantries that are being organized nationwide. These pantries, as you know, have become lifelines for many areas in order to address the issue of hunger and malnutrition. The idea also came about from discussions with Dr. Rainer Bana, the managing editor of the journal Bunti of the Ateneo, where some ideas on urban farming and community gardens were published in one of the volumes of the journal. We hope that discussion today further deepens understanding of the important role of the academic sector that they can play in addressing the malnutrition problems in the country, not only through their research and instruction, but actually outreach programs using the natural human resources that universities have. We thank our resource persons this morning, Father Danny Pilario of the St. Vincent School of Theology in Adamson University, Dr. Ted Mendoza of the University of the Philippines, Professor Floro de la Pag of the Xavier University, and Ms. Cherry Atilian of Agrea Philippines for agreeing to provide their presentations. We hope that we can invite them also in future webinars where we hope we can further enlighten the role of schools in this effort. Thanks to my colleague at the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, Ms. Abby Fabis, for agreeing. And thank you all for attending. We hope to have a fruitful discussion this morning. Magandang umaga po sa lahat.
Thank you very much, Sir Randy, and we hope everyone is encouraged to continue these conversations in your own spaces because it's a very important topic. So this morning, we are delighted to have with us 4 exceptional guests who will share their stories of urban farming and community gardens. Before we start with our panel, we would just like to remind everyone again to feel free to type their comments or questions in the chat box so we can collect them for the open forum later. Thank you. Our first speaker is Reverend Father Daniel Franklin Pilario of the Congregation of the Mission. Father Danny is a professor at the St. Vincent School of Theology at Adamson University and ministers at the Ina ng Lupang Pangako Parish in Payatas, Quezon City. He and his congregation have been working with the local community to handle the food crisis brought about by the pandemic through community gardens in the parish. He will be sharing with us their experience on urban farming beyond community pantries. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome with a virtual round of applause, Father Danny Pilario. Father Danny, the space is yours.
Thank you very much, Abby. Maraming salamat din kay Professor Rainier and the organizers of these dialogues and the different universities, Ateneo, Manila, and Cagayan, and all other universities. Shout out din sa mga nanay ng Payatas na nakikinig ngayon habang sila ay nasa garden nila. May mga data naman siguro yung mga yun. Pero kasama natin sila. I would be speaking on their behalf and I would be reflecting on what they have done since the pandemic until today. Para po mas hindi na natin masyadong i-explain, mas maganda siguro meron tayong 4-minute video of their experience, and I will say something in the end. Michelle, thank you. Parang walang sounds, Michelle.
Ako po si Leticia Constantinopla, nakatira sa Empire Hilltop. Nung nag-lockdown, worried po kami kung saan kami kukuha ng aming pagkain kasi gawa nga na-surprise kami na hindi kami makalabas. Lumapit kami po sa simbahan sa Urban. Tinulungan po kami. Itulungan nila kami kung paano kami makaahon. Tinuruan kami kung paano magtanim, kung saan kami kukuha ng makatulong po kami sa aming pamilya sa naghanap buhay. Po si Nanay Diding kung tawagin nila. Ako po ay isang volunteer ng parokya. Every week, nagdi-distribute kami ng bigas sa 14 areas hanggang June. So noong June, nag-uusap ang mga leaders, ano na ang gagawin natin pagkatapos nito. So hindi naman forever na may bigas. Nag-usap kami kung gusto ba natin na magsama-sama tayong bumuo ng urban gardening. So nag-okay sila. So nabuo nga ito. Sa ngayon, everyday mayroon kaming benta kahit papaano, hindi kami na zero. So masaya siya dahil parang nagkaroon ka ng pag-asa. So ayun po, nabuo ito hanggang sa dumating kami sa puntong ito.
Ano po ba ang pinagkakaabalahan niyo po nung panahon na
may backyard piggery po kami, wala na po. Wala na po kami hanap buhay na mag-asawa. Natakot po ako kung paano ko paaralin yung anak ko. Kasi po bata pa yung 7 years old lang ang anak ko. Takot na kung anong mangyari, kung paano kami makaano. Okay naman po, at least sa ngayon po, masaya na kami.
Ako'y karaniwang tao lamang. Tayo kabayo lang ang alam. Karaniwang hanap buhay.
Kung may gustong pumunta dito, nagsasabi sa amin, binibigay namin para pag natikman nila na sariwa, iba kasi ang lasa nung nabibili mo sa palengke kaysa yung talim mo talaga. Iba ang lasa nila. So, naiinggan niya sila. So, marami na dito sa amin na may mga talim na individual, nasa maliliit lang na paso, ganon, o di kaya sa bote. So, ibig sabihin, nakahikayat kami na ipakita namin na yung kahirapan, pwede natin niyang ibsan o bawasan kung tayo mismo sa sarili ay magsisikap.
Pagkatapos sa bahay namin, pupunta kami sa chapel. Dito kami sa chapel na nagsama-sama na yun. Busy kami ng pagtatanim, paghahalaman. Simula kasi nung lockdown talaga sila Father Danny. Nag-ano sila ng yung distribution of rice. Kaya isa kami doon sa volunteer ng kapatid ko. Kaya sa pamamagitan noon na pagbigay ng rice, yung distribution of rice at lahat ng mga goods na galing sa St. Vincent Health, parang hindi ko nararamdaman na may pandemic. Binuhay ko sa mga anak ko pagtatambakan lang. Kaya yun, masarap maglingkod. Ang pakiramdam mo talagang si Lord lang talaga ang kakampi mo. Kaya sa totoo lang, ako, marami ka rin dinadaanan sa buhay. Pero ito, nakakaraos kami sa pag-araw-araw namin. Tapos lalo ngayon, mas lalo rin mga kasamahan ko. Kaya yun, pag dito kami, sige, pag-share kami, ilabas niyo para wala natin siya may problema sa atin. Ganun kami.
Karaniwang tao, saan ka takot ko? Pag nawasa ang isang mundo. Karaniwang tao, ang kalikasan.
Maraming salamat, Michelle, for sharing the video. I am now sharing my screen. I'll say some things in like 10 minutes. Ang title po ng aking presentation, Reflecting on the Experience of the BEC Women Leaders in PAYATAS, is Urban Farming Beyond Community Pantries. Nakita nyo naman sa screen na we have been doing community pantries, in fact, for a year since the beginning of the lockdown. But the mothers themselves realize na hindi naman sapat ito dahil nga sinabi ni Ate Diding, hindi naman darating yung bigas forever. So sila mismo naka-decide na siguro there should be something beyond it. Ang title po ng aking, ito yung tatlong bahagi ng aking outline, the PAYATAS situation in the time of the pandemic, learning from the women leaders themselves and challenges of PAYATAS urban farming. Ang one-word description sa akin is politics of fear. This is the PAYATAS situation during the pandemic. Ang dami po, fear of hunger, fear of the virus, but 4 years before, fear of EGK, and of course, the militarization of the pandemic. So kung namamayani ang takot, matagal na ito. Lalong-lalo na nung dumating ang COVID-19. Yung isang tatay nagsabi sa akin, Father, hindi naman ako talaga natatakot sa COVID. Natatakot ako na makita ang mga anak kong tumitirik ang kanilang mga mata dahil sa gutom. That is the fear that I do not want to experience. So in response to that is crisis intervention since March 2020 until recently. Rice, pandesal, at kung ano pa mang meron, you have to imagine there are 70,000 to 80,000 people or families in Payatas. Gusto ko lang ipakita itong screen na ito dahil nakikita nyo parang may listahan. For me, that is one of the sample personalized lists as critique to incompetence and the bureaucratic approach of the ayuda of the government. Ito yung listahan ng mga nanay, ang mga taong kanilang binibigyan. At nakita nyo, walang mga apelyido dahil kilala nila ang mga ito. I will go back to it, that the emotional personal networks that the women leaders have from the time of the pandemic and the crisis intervention up to urban farming. Ang sagot po ng mga nanay doon sa fear na yon is actually solidarity. Solidarity as antidote to fear. This is the experience of the women leaders of Payatas. Minsan, sa gitna ng aming recollection, parang meeting, we were meeting every Sunday kasi paano naman kami makapag-distribute kung walang meeting. Sinabi ko sa kanila, we have been like 3 or 4 months now, but you are still here. But nandito pa kayo. May comorbidity kayo, risk din kayo, may risk din kayo, matatanda na yung iba sa inyo. Ang sagot ng isang grupo, summarize ng isang nanay, sabi niya, bakit nandito pa rin kami? Dahil na rin sa sinabi ni Jesus, napakainin ang mga nagugutom. Nasa Bible yan, Father, di ba? Dahil paano naman kami magtatago kung namamatay na sa gutom ang aming mga kapitbahay? Well, the rest of Manila and the rest of the country were hiding in their houses. Well, instigated by fear by the IATF that we had to stay home. These mothers risked and went to every house to distribute whatever they have in order to prevent hunger. At yon ang sitwasyon, we have been doing like 7 months, 8 months of doing crisis intervention. Later on, nag-appear yung community pantries, but Payatas has been doing that in a more personalized and in a more systematic manner. Pero natututo yung mga nanay, sabi niya hindi naman forever ito. Kaya this is some of the learnings that I have been with them since that time until now. Ito yung natutunan ko sa kanila. Marami pa siguro silang sasabihin dahil limited naman yung time natin. Ito lang yung natutunan ko sa kanila. Number 1, the central place of community. They have been a community even before the pandemic. We call the church, Catholic Church calls it basic ecclesial communities. And even today, the community pantries are not individualized or personalized community pantries. Urban farming are not personalized planting of trees, of vegetables. It's a continuing community building process. This is what I call the church at the grassroots, the church of the poor, as trying to show us the way. Second, the force of women power. This is what is shown in that personalized list, which I have shown earlier. Tawag ko doon ay emotionalized networks of solidarity and connectivity. And because it is personalized, the mothers know, alam ng mga nanay kung sinong nangangailangan, kung sinong walang trabaho, kung sinong nagugutom, kung sinong may sakit doon sa kanilang mga kapitbahay dahil mga sakop nila yon. Then creativity comes to the fore. Until today, creativity is the principle of expanding engagements in the community. The third is the presence of external help. Siyempre, wala naman talagang resources sa Payatas. Ang isa sa mga kinatatakot namin noon, pag wala talagang makakain dito, magnanakawan na ito at siguro you have a community breakdown. So we tried to drum up external support. Yung sinasabi nila kanina sa video na Vincent helps, is one of the the Vincentian response to the pandemic in the PAYATAS and other places. And then we have sustained them not only in the pandemic, but also in community gardens. And of course, other funding groups that are helping us and generous individuals who have seen us on Facebook and social media. Number 4 is the faith, is the principle of faith. Faith in God, faith in people, faith in nature as the source of people's resilience. Alam po natin, may mga researches ngayon na faith is in fact the principle of people's resilience during the pandemic. But the mothers have shown us that it's not just faith in God. Later on, we will see that faith in God is crucial, but faith in nature, in Laudato Si, sinasabi doon, hearing the cry of the earth is also hearing the cry of the poor. At dito nakukombine ng mga mothers, BEC mothers ng PAYATAS. Recently, ito na yun. Siyempre, nag-urban farming na sila at na-realize nila baka kailangan bumalik sa pagdarasal. And of course, it's not possible to gather in small houses sa yung kanilang kinasanayan na magsi-sharing sila doon dahil wala namang social distance doon. And in this context, the pictures tell us that the prayer experience in the context of urban farming continues even in the gardens. At doon, siyempre, hindi naman sila masisita kasi urban distancing din yan. The next one is, and maybe the last one is the challenges of PAYATAS urban farming. So hindi naman lahat good news. Meron din kaming mga problema at naranasan din ng mga nanay ito at sinasabi din nila ito. Number 1 is the problem of location. You know, PAYATAS is a garbage dump of Manila. And you have problems of soil fertility. The picture that is shown here, yan po ay mga bubog at mga basura, mga plastic na itinambak doon sa gilid na yun. Imagine niyo, huhukayin nila 1 meter below in order to take out all those garbage in order to plant. Now, this is just one sample. The rest of the gardens in PAYATAS is the same. Ikalawa, precariousness of non-owners. Siyempre, hindi naman sarili nilang lupa yun. May mga may-ari, nakiusap lang sila. And a time will come, and it really came, like 2 or 3 places. Sinabi nung pagkalinis, noong mga bubog, sinabi nung may-ari, gusto na namin gamitin ito. Imaginein mo, nalinis mo na lahat, tinamnan mo na, at yung may-ari ay dumating, gagamitin. Second is the question of sustainability. Sustainability, food sustainability, di ba? Pero if you have like, you have problems of the present food needs. Sinabi ng mga nanay, nagpa-plant nga kami dito ng mga pechay, ng mga mustasa, wala naman kami mga bigas. So in the beginning of the project, we have to sustain like 3 or 5 kilos of rice for each gardener until such time na meron silang ma-harvest. The small land area, you have 20 mothers together, and you have only 100 square meters. How sustainable can that be? Pero precisely, yun yung sitwasyon ng PAYATAS. Ikatlo, yung market. No? Meron na nga silang mga sitaw, meron na nga saan nila ibibenta. So that is the present problems you are undergoing. Number 3 is the need for technological and financial resource. Halimbawa, know-how in organic farming. We have decided that this is thoroughly organic. And we have asked the help of a volunteer organic farmer who helped us paano i-fertilize yung lupa, etc., etc., etc. But we need more of those seminars. Halimbawa, seeds and seasons. Anong itatanim sa panahon ng ganito, sa tag-ulan, sa tag-init, etc. Tools and implements. Wala naman ho silang mga piko, etc. And of course, garden is infrastructure. Lastly, the last challenge is the danger of cooptation by the powers that be. Nagsisikap na nga yung mga nanay at pagkatapos isang araw nakita mo na lang yung mga unang-una ito yung mga creativity amidst the challenges. So beyond the urban farming, naging creative sila beyond all those limitations. Halimbawa, yung mga green na yan, yun yung mga tinatapon ng mga plastic na mga bote. Ginawa nilang pang-hollow block para mapigil yung lupa. Yung iba nag-expand na sa pagtitinda ng halaya. Meron nag-aalaga ng chicken, meron nag-aalaga ng nagtitinda ng mga bangus. So beyond urban farming, in order to make it sustainable, the mothers are creative. However, the last problem was cooptation by the powers, by the government. Nagugulat na lang kami isang araw, pumunta sa Payatas ang buong, siguro ilang sasakyan yun na puno ng media at yung mga leader ng Quezon City government. And then harvest, photo op sa isang garden na hindi naman kanila. On the next day, you will find in the Quezon City government website that this is part of #GrowQC. They have never been there, only for the photo op. This is the problem of present urban gardening. Pero hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin sumusuko. Sinabi sa film 11 because that was made like months ago. Today, there are 15 urban gardens in Payatas. Sa katapusan po, dahil time ko na, gusto kong magwakas doon sa sinabi ni Nanay Diding sa film. Sabi niya, ayon, masaya siya dahil parang nagkakaroon ka ng pag-asa. In a time during the pandemic when people are losing hope, are so discouraged, to be able to bring hope among the women leaders themselves and their families is already a good news that urban farming has done to Payatas. Sana magpatuloy po sila at sana'y makakuha kami ng mga tulong para talagang totoong maging sustainable ang kanilang ginagawa. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikinig. Good morning to all.
Thank you so much, Father Danny. That was so inspirational to hear. Especially to me, it especially resonated the power of the nanays, the mothers, and the emotional networks that they have. So thank you for sharing your experience. It was so inspiring, and I hope it also encourages our participants to copy or to do the same in their own community. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker, we'll move on now to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Cherry Atilano, President and founding farmer of Agrea Philippines. She was one of the 10 outstanding students of the Philippines in 2007 and one of the outstanding women in the nation's service in 2016. Agrea as a company and her as a social entrepreneur was also awarded by the Asia Pacific CSR Council and the UN Global Compact with the Global Responsible Business Award in 2017 for agriculture excellence. She is a true believer that Filipino farmers are world-class and deserve more recognition. She will be sharing with us her thoughts on urban gardening, flourishing post-pandemic. It's time for cities to encourage new growth. Everyone, please help me welcome Ms. Cherry Atilano. Ms. Cherry, the space is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to share my insights on urban gardening flourishing post-pandemic. It's time for cities to encourage new growth. Thank you so much, Ateneo de Manila, Xavier University, SDSN for this invitation. And I'm so happy that this is actually captured as a Food Systems Summit 2021 dialogue, being the UN Food Systems Summit champion or representing the Philippines. Before I proceed to my talk, Sir Danny Pilario, I'm so inspired of your talk. I'm so inspired of the situation that you've been helping Payatas women. Yesterday, I was in Payatas. Our social enterprise has been helping there also. And I really want to tell you that I want to help you. And I'll keep in touch with you after this. So I'll proceed with my presentation. Allow me to share my screen. And yes, so just to give you a bit of background on where we are actually. Agria is not a company that is in urban setting. It just so happened that during the pandemic, all the interventions that we've been doing are in Metro Manila because a lot of farmers all over the Philippines are stuck. They don't know where to sell their produce, and they're really suffering because of all the lockdowns, the checkpoints, and it was an intense scenario that is sometimes, you feel that it's inhuman, but I think, being Filipinos and being resilient, we always survive and thrive. But I think it's also a time for us to be enlightened, to demand accountability and responsibility, because we're more than this. We can go beyond the pandemic. So just to give you a background about myself, I'm still young, I'm still a millennial, but I dedicated 23 years of my life in the agriculture sector. I grew up in a sugarcane farm in Negros Occidental, where my parents are into sugarcane farming. I remember at 11 years old, my mom put me in a scholarship center. And every weekend in this scholarship center, I was learning how to cook, how to bake, how to garden, how to crochet, manahe, lahat na lang. But what fascinated me with that is there's a book there. It's called Biointensive Gardening. And I read in a book that if you're poor, 100% of your income goes to food, 70% rice. Hindi yan kain pag walang kanin, no, sa Pinoy. And 30% ulam. And the book says, if you know how to plant vegetables around your house, you can basically save that 30% and send your children to school and have a roof on your head. So I brought that book home, and that was my first business pitch to my mom. I told my mom I want a bike for my birthday. And my mom was kind of like a strict mom. Kasi hindi naman kami mayaman. We only have 2 gifts in a year, your birthday and during Christmas. Kung matalino ka, may bago kang damit to receive your honor, at the end of the school year. So I was wise enough. I told my mom, Mom, can you please buy me a bike? My mom said, why bike? You're only turning 12, and why you want a bike for your birthday? I said, I want to go a bike in sari-sari stores every weekend to teach farmers how to plant vegetables around their house, because the sugarcane farmers, they're not planting vegetables. Every weekend, after they receive their salary, they would go to sari-sari store, iinom sila doon ng vino colafo, cuatro cantos, tuba. No, naglalasing. There's no more money to bring home. So I said, I want to influence these farmers to actually plant vegetables around their house so that their children can go to school, because most of the children there are not in school, and the cycle of poverty is happening. And my mother said, I'll approve it, because at the end of the day, my mom would always tell me, what's the shortest distance in life? She would grab my hand every morning and she asked me, and she would tell me, the shortest distance in life is the distance between your brain and your heart. If you don't know how to connect the shortest distance, forget about life, because I want you to be relevant, not just to be successful. And asking my mama bike to teach farmers on weekend was not a question. So she bought me a bike, and now I'm still in the agriculture sector for 23 years. And, it was a big journey in the process. And so just to give you a background about Agrea, we are actually an innovative, inclusive, and for-purpose agribusiness. We call ourselves agribusiness with a heart, because somehow agribusiness is always measured on money, measured on yield, measured on the land we cultivated. But it really never mentioned about the human beings, So when we started Agrea, we coined it ecology of dignity. Paano natin bigyan ng dignidad ang mga tao na nasa agrikultura, especially our farmers and our fisher folks. Because it's a crime against humanity that the producers of the food in the food chain are the poorest, the hungriest, and the most malnourished. Sila yung nagpapatubo ng pagkain, sila pa yung gutom. And also, we wanted to be fair trade. Paano natin tratuhin yung mga farmers that are really paid well in their effort. So we did our vision mission goals. I think a lot of you here are young people attending. I really want to encourage you that if you start something, you need to have clarity of vision. And this vision and mission makes, they make me awake every morning with full of enthusiasm and motivation. Our vision is to create the first one island economy model in the Philippines by 2035. So we started it in the island of Marinduque, and now we're replicating it in the island of Siargao, And there are 6 more islands in the pipeline, Palawan, Bohol, Romblon, Mindoro Occidental, Oriental, Negros Occidental, and so on. And our mission is to alleviate poverty and hunger of farming and fishing communities. So basically, there are 17 sustainable development goals, right? But we work around 13 out of 17, and we capture them into 3 major goals: zero waste, zero hunger, zero insufficiency. I really want to emphasize the zero hunger. This is not just about the hunger of a stomach, the physical hunger, because physical hunger can be solved by just eating a meal. This is about the hunger of a human spirit, a hunger of a human, a person to be dignified, a hunger of a person to belong to the society. Zero waste, of course. Food is our umbilical cord to Mother Earth. If we destroy our nature, if we forget the fact that food is our umbilical cord to Mother Earth, it's so easy for us to destroy Mother Earth. That's what's actually happening right now. And zero insufficiency is our business. By background, and I'm an agriculturist and agricultural economist. So we study the import and export of every island we enter. So just to give you a quick overview, where are we? We work in the island of Marinduque and Siargao. You can see our farm situation there. We're big in ginger and turmeric production. It's still a lot of struggles and challenges that we're experiencing because of this pandemic. The shipment from island to mainland is so difficult. And also in Siargao, we're in Siargao because every year it's visited by around 400,000 tourists, and the locals there cannot afford to buy food anymore. Nagugutom sila. Everything is dollar sign. And a lot of farmers left the farming communities to be habal-habal drivers, construction workers, to be of service to the growth of tourism industry. But the locals, sabi nga ng isang farmer during our focus group discussion when we started in Siargao, Miss Che, dati po ang tuna, ordinaryong pagkain lang namin yan. Ngayon po ang tuna parang lechon. Kung hindi kami magtitipid, hindi kami makatikim ng tuna. Ganun na po siya kamahal. So this is actually happening in our islands in the Philippines, where we have massive tourism coming in. Our locals are the ones suffering. Even in Boracay, right? A lot of our locals are suffering and the food is so expensive. So that's where we're coming from. We want to help on making it sustainable. So where are we now? Philippine population is around 110 million, and this is growing and growing, right? And the problem there is, because of our growing population, our agriculture is actually shrinking. A lot of our lands are converted into industrial. A lot of our farmers are aging, 60 years old average age. Not much of young Filipinos are going into agriculture. That's actually another problem we're facing. And we have climate change that we're also experiencing in the Philippines. Right now, 7.6 milyong pamilya ang nagugutom dahil lang sa pandemya, no? And actually, the malnutrition in the country also tripled in number. Hidden hunger is such, an economic issue, because pag gutom po yung tao, malnourished sila, it actually incapacitate also our economic value as human capital. So, ito po, nung pandemic, we were out and about. My entire team, nagpapasalamat ako sa Diyos na buhay pa ako. Yung team ko, wala kaming na COVID kasi we were out and about. So during the pandemic, the second day of the lockdown, we were out there helping farmers to bring their produce in Metro Manila. I remember I wrote a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture and the Undersecretary for Operation of DA to help in giving us food pass so that the trucks can enter in Metro Manila. We've been helping 30,000 farmers from all over, including Mindanao. We were shipping goods from Jensan, Cotabato, Soxargen, name it po, hanggang Zamboanga, to bring in Metro Manila, bring it in Cebu, where people are stuck. At ito yung picture na makikita mo every time we deliver. Naging pahinanti po ako, kargador, lahat na lang ng pwedeng pasukan. Matulungan yung ating farmers to bring their produce in the city, no? Kasi ang chaos, may gutom sa Metro Manila, samantala yung mga farmers naman nabubulukan ng produkto nila. Kasi the lockdown happened when it's the hype of the harvest season. The hype of our harvest season usually starts in March. And lahat ng yon nabubulok. So ito yung mga pictures doon. Patay na sa gutom, di sa COVID-19. COVID-19 is our threat at tamang-tama, sabi ni Father Danny, it's the fear in different forms, right? I remember every time I was on a truck, minimit namin yung farmers sa Balintawak. Alas 4 ng umaga andun ako because pag malampasan kami ng 7, makukulong kami. So that's how difficult. We're really running after time every day. Another one is, this is the biggest challenge. This is Typhoon Ulysses. This is a picture in Tondo, Manila. This is the biggest crisis humanity has ever faced. This is not something you can like on Facebook. So that's actually like a little bit of background. And I'll give you also, before I go to the urban gardening, why we entered that. This is so close to my heart. We've been working with the Department of Agriculture in building the garden classrooms, in public elementary schools, especially in Marinduque Islands where we have intervention, and Siargao. Right now we have 45 schools in our portfolio. So the basic guiding principles of all the gardens we're actually establishing, it needs to be food for the table, income from savings of buying food from the market, and greener environment. So we work with the Parents Teachers Association to utilize the land in the school to actually an extra land for parents to have intervention. And a lot of the produce in the gardens classroom are actually donated to the feeding program of the school. It needs to be organic and regenerative agriculture kasi diretso po nilang kinakain. A use of open pollinated seeds so that they can replant the seeds. Seed saving will be taught to them. So tinuturo yan sa kanila lahat na hindi pwedeng bumibili ng seeds lagi. Dapat napapaikot nila yung seeds. Focus on local Filipino vegetables, so sinigang, pinakbet kinds. Recycle, repurpose, reuse. Utilize empty lands and empty spaces. Another one po is edible gardening. Aside from planting flowers in these schools, we also encourage them to do edible gardening. So lahat ng harapan ng schools dapat may tanim. Whole family participation. Kung ang anak nag-aaral sa ganyang school, dapat yung mga pamilya, nanay, tatay kasali sa paggawa ng garden. Gender sensitive. It was also mentioned by Sir Danny, the women are the most powerful, especially during this pandemic. Kasi sila po yung sumasakit yung ulo pag walang pagkain. Sa kanila po, lumilipad ang kaldero pag gutom si tatay. Yan po yung sabi ng mga nanay sa amin. Child-friendly and educational. So it needs to be inclusive and collaborative in nature and collective action. So we encourage even, everyone, including the private sector, to work with us. So nakakatuwa, no? These are some photos of our garden classroom programs. This is in Siargao. The school, the students there, they presented us their school report. Every school is encouraged to create a report. Kung makita po ninyo, welcome to the garden classroom. Takip po yan ang COOP. Ginawa nilang kanilang pang-welcome at name sa garden classroom nila. They utilize a lot of waste because it's an island. Sa Siargao, grabe yung basura. They utilize all the waste. Instead na lulutang ito sa dagat, pinapakuha namin sa kanila, and they utilize it as, as a beautification and useful planting pots for their gardens. Aside from that, we also encourage community food garden. This is in partnership with the Bishop Maralit of Marinduque. We've been doing a lot of community gardens in Siargao. So ito po, marami pong nananalo ng mga nanay, may mga pa-contest pa kaming ginagawa. So during the pandemic, aside from, same with Father Danny, we've been donating a lot of food and a lot of vegetables in different NGOs, different organizations. But since our strength is really into farming, sabi namin, bakit hindi natin pasukin yung urban gardening? Kasi hindi sustainable yung magbibigay tayo ng may donor fatigue na nangyayari. So we signed an agreement, Plan program with the Department of Agriculture and other NGOs and private sector to actually make this happen. So what did we do? So far, with this intervention, gumawa po kami ng mga grow kits. Ito po yung mga nanay namin sa Tondo, Intramuros, Bulacan, Laguna, Cavite. Ito po yung mga sa relocation sites yung iba. So kung makikita po ninyo, nag-design kami ng grow kits. Paano maging madali sa kanila magtanim at paano matulungan din yung mga magsasaka na coconut farmers in Lucban, Quezon. So yung mga coconut farmers in Lucban, we asked them to make the soil, organic soil. We asked them to make this box for seedling tray and seedling box. We also asked them to really grow the seedlings for us bago namin i-deliver sa mga nanay. So, ganito po kaganda yung mga seedlings bago ibigay para wala po silang excuse na hindi itanim. No? Yung talong talagang dapat mo nang ilipat. Yung kamatis dapat mo nang ilipat. Yung sili dapat mo nang ilipat. And we named them so cute. Yung sinigang, pinangalanan naming the funny gang grow kit. Yung pinakbet, ang pinakabet mong grow kit. You know, so we really made it na it's educational and it comes with a brochure. So ito po yung mga 200 families in Cavite. In total po, nakatulong kami ng more than 1,000 including Intramuros. So each nanay po, may natanggap silang grow kit at lahat po tinatanim nila. So nakakatuwa po kasi mga breadwinners po sila ng kanilang family and they're so happy. Look at po yung harap ng bahay nila. Lahat na lang ng pwede nilang taniman, ginawa nilang taniman. This is the relocation site in Cavite and then Laguna. Lahat ng gilid ng bahay nila, tinataniman nila. So, every day, meron kaming group, no? Meron kaming Facebook group. Nagsishare sila kung anong mga niluluto nila. Nagsishare sila ng, alimbawa, may paksiw sila, nilagyan na nila ng mga okra sa taas, talong sa taas, ampalaya sa taas. Sabi nila, Miss Che, yung aming what's this? Paksiw, hindi lang ordinaryong paksiw. Talagang may gulay na kasali. So nakakatuwa. And this is also the Puso ng Ama Foundation where we are connected in PAYATAS. Since the pandemic, we've been sending them, you know, rice, fresh vegetables. And last year, we also started sending them grow kits. So 49 po na women yung nagtatanim. At nakakatuwa po. Kahapon, bumalik po ako doon. So fresh. Kasi kahapon, ni-launch namin kasi 80 na women ang gustong sumali. Siguro, Father Danny, magkatabi lang to sila sa Payatas. Ang laki kasi ng Payatas. So this is in Puso ng Ama. 80 women ang nagsulat na, Miss Che, gusto namin sumali kasi nakita namin sa aming kapitbahay kung ano ang naidulot ng urban garden. So kahapon, nagkaroon kami ng scoping kung ano yung gusto nilang itanim, ano ang ibig sabihin ng masustansyang pagkain sa kanila, bakit sila gustong sumali at kung paano pa mabago ang kanilang buhay. So maraming salamat. Hopefully, we'll continue to plant and #plantdemic. And hopefully, you know, this is such an awakening for our urban designers to really include urban farming in the process. And for our local government unit, na hindi lamang yung rural ang may city or municipal agriculture officer. Dapat yung LGU sa Metro Manila, mayroon na lang city agriculture officer. Thank you so much po.
Thank you so much, Miss Cherry. Nakakatuwa yung mga examples and yung mga creative and innovative ideas that you've implemented. Parang gusto ko rin magkaroon ng bet na PAC-bet grow kit. So I can grow that here at home. Thank you so much, Miss Cherry, for sharing that. And I hope everybody's starting to see, there are some common themes in the experiences of Father Danny and Miss Cherry. And maybe we'll see how we can connect that also to our next two speakers. And speaking of, our third speaker for today is Professor Floro Villarojo Dalapag. He is an assistant professor at the College of Agriculture at Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan. He is an expert in the fields of organic agriculture and high-value crops, as well as the crops value chain. And with his expertise, he serves as the resource person for the Department of Agriculture Regional Field Office Farmers Training in crop production, vermiculture, and other topics. Today, he will be sharing with us his perspectives on the sustainability of agriculture projects. So everyone, please help me welcome Professor Dalapag. Professor Dalapag, the space is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So first of all, I would give my appreciation for the organizers of this particular webinar. I learned a lot my topic is sustainability of urban agri initiatives, and I was drafting my presentation. I was reflecting and what was missing on a number of our initiatives, which were not really sustained. And it was inspiring to hear. The first speaker basically focused on the spiritual and the religious component. So meaning to say, we just not focus on, when we speak of sustainability, oftentimes we focus on the economics. And me as a technical person, I also focus on the technical component of our projects. And the second speaker, again, make me realize, belonging to a different generation, it is difficult to understand perspectives of the younger. And it's very inspiring to hear the perspectives of women power and a millennial with a very good background in economics and appreciation of sustainable regenerative agriculture. So allow me to share with you my presentations. So having some problems with sharing my screen. So the outline of my presentation would be, again, an introduction, focus on the agri benefits, focusing on land conversion. My perspective more or less would be more technical. Again, a review on urban agri production systems and the systems in which I had certain involvement, and what I've learned from the urban agri involvement I had, starting when I was still a student, up to now when I am about to change career from teaching to something else, and some foods for thought in sustaining organic agriculture initiatives. So a number of us are all familiar with the benefits of organic farming, of urban agriculture, by the way. So meaning to say, making the cities green and decreasing food miles. Allow me to share on the importance of organic agriculture as an option against issues on land conversion. So we definitely know of all the fact that with increasing population, there is greater demand for land area for food production. And there are forest to farmland conversion at the same time with urbanization, farmlands are being converted to urban centers. So urban agriculture offers another option of bringing farming in the heart of the city itself. So one of which would be farming on rooftops. Meaning to say, this is not just a fad. This can be farming in the future. And the last picture here would be buildings as farms. This is from the architectural point of view. So another thing would be, what are the issues basically highlighted during pandemic? Because of travel restriction and distribution issues, it is now very important to focus on local consumption rather than depend on globalization or marketing, getting our food from other sources. So urban agri production systems, basically from whole garden, school garden to vertical agriculture. My experience would basically be on such things as faith gardening, food always in the home, then Gulayan sa Paralan. We also have some experience in promoting community gardening relocation sites and a very well-funded community gardening project. And some insights on our experience with ornamental growers and what I've learned from the Lakbay Aral program of the government on commercialization of urban agriculture. So community relocation sites, especially at Savior Ecoville, definitely it is an emergency response. We utilize vacant lot utilization. What I like to highlight in here is that this particular project, other than which was promoted by Dr. Holmer, not only focused on gardening itself, but on waste segregation and utilization, particularly urine, which still not well accepted. No? So meaning to say in relocation areas, one basic human resource which can be used as fertilizers would be urine. And based on our research, and even on literature, urine is basically safe and healthy. So hopefully that can be addressed by some people investigating and its use. When I was young, basically, my mother, when we urinate in Arinola, basically, i-dilute lang and water it in the plants outside every morning. So there are practices, basically, these are practices which have been done in the past, and we can do scientific proof. We can produce scientific proof to produce that fertilizers, urine can be good fertilizers. However, basically, urine is not accepted under organic practices. So what's happened at a relocation center? Since basically it's a temporary activity, and most of those relocatees have the mentality of seeing the activity as a livelihood option rather than grow your own food perspective. And most of those advocating and supporting them are non-regular and temporary. And definitely the vacant lot component of community garden is really a big factor. So when the lots are being utilized for other purposes, so definitely community garden will not be sustained. What's the status now? So the community gardens were not really maintained. However, we should learn from the fact that a number of people continue with mini gardening. And as had been shared by our second speaker, what is important now is looking at the crops. Choice of crop is very important in sustaining urban agriculture programs. I would like to give examples later as to what crop I am proposing and advocating. So our experience with container gardening are similar to what DA is basically and other are proposing. We work with rural improvement clubs, and these are some of the things they had produced, and they applied it in the area. So again, these particular practices were not sustained because the lot were temporary, and because of lack of formation among RIC members, they were having problem on sharing, who's going to maintain, and the sharing of the produce. So again, this particular project we had initiated, we're not really sustained since it's basically volunteer program and student change from time to time. So we have an allotment garden ARPUBEP experience, well funded by the European Union. So this is a very good picture. Again, some of which would be dealing with cooperators or squatters. And one good thing is that this particular project, other than being initiated by Xavier University, it established a very good LGU partnership. Again, characteristic, still small scale and dependent on vacant lot utilization. So sustainability issues, a number of our cooperators have to debate whether this activity would be alternative source of livelihood or alternative food source. And again, economies of scale. Since the scale is relatively small with vegetables, and if you wanted to view it as an alternative source of livelihood, pricing would be very volatile, and their produce would not be competitive with the commercial producers. So after the funding, most of the areas supported by this project no longer produced, the community gardens no longer existed. The saving grace is the partnership with LGU. So the LGU of Cagayan de Oro continued, and as of now, they are establishing 7 community gardens in different locations, however, with different farmer cooperators. So during POBEF time, the Philippine Agriculture Office also of Misamis Oriental, the capital, basically Misamis Oriental, established a weekend market pre-COVID. However, because of COVID restrictions, the weekend market was discontinued. To still support the marketing procedure, the marketing of farmers' products, Ms. Orr made arrangements with FICO, a cooperative. So the FICO now is buying the farmers' produce and marketed to the co-op members. So that is again another particular partnership which might be explored to support marketing and sustainability. So we had difficulty in maintaining small scale growers of vegetables. However, we have relative success in promoting community gardens growing ornamental crops. So parallel with, in one area, parallel with our PUBEP, the husbands were vegetable growers. So we taught housewives and trained them on ornamental growing. And for market, we linked them to landscapers. And we regularly, through the support of the province and Department of Agriculture, we finance the participation in garden shows, not only local, but also to the major garden shows in the Philippines through the Lakbay Aral program. So through this particular program, these small women growers were able to sell mass produce and sell it in other places. At the same time, they were able to obtain new variations in ornamental crops from Manila, from Bacolod and Davao, propagated in Cagayan de Oro. So those are a number of things which you see that ornamental growing is rather attractive for the Filipino people. In my travel around in the rural area as well as in the urban areas, a number of poor households do not grow edible food, but they have at least one or two pots of ornamental crops. There's something new, there is something really important to focus on ornamental growing. So the status, the more enterprising cooperators had already partnered with their husbands. And one good thing with the plantito and plantita craze, here in Cagayan de Oro, you can see a number of garden centers sprouting. So school-based gardens. So as a student, I was a volunteer to promote gardening in the Boys Town. And recently, pre-COVID, we were able to partner with Balulang Elementary School for the school garden. In fact, the organization I am moderating was awarded, was recognized by Lacton Legacy Awards, since with the promotion of this urban gardening, we introduced waste utilization, utilizing black soldier fly, and self-circulating hydroponics, again, recycling plastic bottles. Perhaps in the future, a number of us might be really interested in black soldier fly, since this can be used to recycle food and market waste. And I've talked with my batchmates. There are programs in the Philippines, one of which is NAGA, which have commercial utility waste segregation program. And all of this, we connect black soldier fly raising and vegetable gardening to really sustain urban agriculture initiatives. One very good point nga gi-share gyapon sa atong previous speakers is the domino effect. Meaning, we need to assess whether school gardens would have domino effect. Are the children's learning duplicated at home? So, baklay aral, can urban agriculture be commercialized? So I was able to visit commercial strawberry farm in BSU, Benguet State University. And definitely it is a very good model for commercialization of urban agriculture. So one of the major factors, academic support, so that the technical component has been addressed. The land is permanent since it's government owned, and it's tied up with agritourism, the pick and pay. It's something novel. So again, during COVID, decline strawberry sales, there was a decline in strawberry sales because of travel restrictions. To survive, this particular garden had to diversify into high-value vegetables. So from this particular model, definitely urban agriculture can be commercialized. However, we should not really be specialists. We should really diversify. So how to sustain agri projects? For home-based garden, since I am in the academe, other than the concept of growing your own food, we should more or less promote the use of functional foods as your own medicine. So a number of people had commercialized, meaning there are a lot of food supplements. So why do you buy these food supplements from natural sources when you can make it your own? So moringa, for example, is a very good functional food. So school-based initiatives, one of our major problems now would be the aging of our farmers. How do we attract people to go into agriculture? So school-based gardening with innovations, showing that agricultural production is a science in itself and a very good business potential. And again, to raise environmental issues, we should attach with our urban agriculture program bioconversion, and at the same time, to really maximize the effect of urban agriculture, we should associate it with feeding or nutritional program, since a number of our kids, especially in the depressed areas, are malnourished. For community gardens, this had also been mentioned by our second speaker, edible gardening. However, we would like to expand it to edible landscaping. So meaning you do not only garden in your own home, but public areas should be landscaped, including food sources. Okay. So upscaling, aquaponics, and water recycling. This I've learned from the other dialogues I had attended. So most of our urban agricultural programs do not include vegetables, do not include fish. We are an archipelagic country, and we have a lot of rains. So aquaponic fish should be incorporated into the program. And in the future, we will be hovering with water. Water is a major resource, and water is a food in itself, very important in growing crops. So as much as possible, we should include water recycling component. I never imagined that I would be buying water, since water when I was young was free. So hopefully there should be policies or ordinances requiring provisions for our urban agriculture on high-rise buildings. So some success models we can learn from the experience of in Cagayan de Oro. So we have definite programs which we had promoted. So we have faith gardening. This is from the Baptist group in Bansalan. So we adapted it and promoted it. So PUVEP introduced allotment garden, and in tribute now to the late president, although school gardening is not new, he institutionalized it, Gulayan sa Paralan, in 2010 through the Agri-Pinoy program. So one of the major things which basically sustained this particular initiative is our partnership with the local government, especially the City Agricultural Office of Cagayan de Oro. So although we now have we are rather low in the promotion of container gardening, they have a very good container household gardening program, which had been well recognized. They have now tied up with Glenrock and CSW to sustain financing. And just recently, this particular month, the CDO LGU signed with the Department of Education an MOU on promoting citywide gulayan sa Paralan. So if you note, in this particular component, one success, these are the factors, I think, which can sustain urban agriculture promotion. One, it should be multi-sectoral, it should be program-based, and inclusion of nutrient component. Although we are rather weak now in our allotment garden, we still continue promoting it through our students. And one particular organization, PAA Juniors, was recognized for their particular proposal for the Lockton Legacy Award in 2019. We were not able to implement it because of COVID. However, from this experience, basically, there should be youth improvement, youth involvement to sustain urban agricultural initiatives. And at the same time, there should be innovations to keep their interest. And with the development in CDO, promoting now citywide GSP, we can now connect this particular student project with the government and DepEd so that this particular initiative can be sustained. So another particular thing I would like to expand is edible landscaping. So again, this particular area has been Googled. However, this is our recent advocacy with Misamis Oriental provincial government, edible landscaping. So meaning to say, their campus, instead of just landscaping, we grow crops which can double as an ornamental at the same time food sources, functional food. Since we are in the academy, we are trying to study which plant combination can give you the most benefits. So a very common example is blue rice. So we're trying to study, meaning this is a novelty. In fact, you can only see them in restaurants. But what is really the biofortification value of mixing blue pea vine with rice? So what we are now trying to promote is a combination of blue limoca. You can surf it, the simple concept, you can surf it in YouTube, blue limoca. Blue is blue pea vine. This is lemongrass, my favorite, moringa, and calamansi to be included in school gardens. Again, this has been, and this particular idea has been shared by the initiative of our second speaker. So meaning to say, focus on local group, seed planted. However, my experience as an agronomist, it is best to sustain if we are going to use perennial crops. Meaning to say, our cooperators do not have to replant. So that's why, other than calamansi, we are also trying to promote sweet potato leaves as salad greens, highly nutritious and very easy to plant as compared to pechay and lettuce. And as much as possible, this should be supported with policies. There is a Republic Act 1953, which regulate the practice of landscape architecture. We hope that there would be a parallel ordinances or laws supporting vertical agriculture and edible landscaping. So we normally have different perspectives. We have different backgrounds. We see urban agriculture differently. I myself, my perspective on this had changed. That's why I focus on malunggay. When I was young, I complained about eating malunggay almost every day. That's why during that particular time, I joke, malunggay is kadautan, meaning what's wrong with being poor? Since it is every month's vegetable fare. So eventually I realized that I was not malnourished when I was young. I was not a milk drinker. So I have very good brain development because of malunggay. So it's just a superfood, and basically we should try it, and easy to plant. It is a functional food, and it should be included in our edible garden. And since I also have a background on crop development, I was able to get some seeds during Sindong, long pods from India, and I planted them and was able to select. And I'm trying to evaluate if they are better than our existing ones. Here in Cagayan de Oro, I will be willing to share some with you of these seeds so that you can give feedback if these are better than our existing ones. So as a last, there are a number of technologies in urban agriculture. Should we focus on novelty, or should we really focus on upscale technology? Definitely small is beautiful, but we should also examine the principle of economies of scale. So daghang salamat, itutuloy, since basically we hope that this will be continued. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dalapag, and thank you for giving us an overview of the different scales of how we can apply edible gardens. I especially like that change of concept now from edible garden to edible landscaping. Maybe that's something we can also apply in the university. Thank you very much, Professor Dalapag. Thank you also for everyone who's been sending in their comments and questions in the chat box. So I hope everyone can take a look and see what's already being discussed. I think there's a healthy discussion going on already in the chat box also. So please don't forget to type in if you have any more comments or questions. Please send them to us through the chat. So last but not least, we also have with us today Dr. Teodoro Mendoza. He is a retired professor from the Institute of Crop Science of the College of Agriculture and Food Sciences at UP Los Baños. He is a multi-awarded scientist and accomplished educator, and is a specialist in crop physiology and ecology, and involved in the disciplines of farming systems and organic agriculture. He has served as consultant and technical advisor for numerous national and international corporations, and has more than 3 decades worth of experience in working with civil society organizations. Today, he'll be sharing with us his thoughts on addressing the challenges of urban farming and community gardens. Everyone, please help me welcome Dr. Teodoro Mendoza. Doc Ted, the space is yours. Hi, Doc Ted. You're on mute po, sir.
Okay. O yan.
Great, great.
Okay na ba?
Yes, sir.
Saan ako, paano ako papasok sa aking PowerPoint? Yan. Where's my PowerPoint? Okay. So, narinig po natin yung mga speakers at napakaganda ng mga i-share nilang mga knowledge. Tamang-tama naman po at more conceptual ang aking presentation, at least reflecting my discipline as a professor and as a UP scientist. By the way, retired na po ako, pero yung pagsasaka, wala ho yatang retirement kasi tayo naman po ay 3 times a day kumakain. So, yeah, as one who was born into farming, mga magulang ko po, sila ngayon ay nasa ibang buhay na. Kaya siguro ako naging agriculturist because of them. Kasi yung challenge noon while I was still young, paano ko matutulungan din ang mga magsasaka? So instead of pursuing my childhood dream of becoming a lawyer, so siguro po ito ang calling, agricultural scientist. Okay, starting with chemical agriculture, ultimately, most of my publication in the latter part of my career are into in support of organic agriculture. Ang major entry point ko po ay tingnan yung energetics in relation to the energy footprint of agriculture or our food system, knowing that the major contributor of greenhouse gas emission now is our food system. About 56% of the total greenhouse gas emission are in the chain. Ngayong umaga po, gusto kong i-share itong summary ng usual discussion. Yung po, pagpapaliwanag ng mga terminologies natin, bakit kinakailangan urban agriculture, ano yung mga dapat nating i-address. Yeah, agriculture came from two words. Agri meaning Latin word meaning field, cultura it means cultivation. So agriculture means cultivating a piece of land or planting and growing plants, animals on it. When we say agriculture, ang nire-refer natin yung kanayunan or rural areas or the countryside. Rarely yung urban area kasi essentially these are built up area and are for human settlement with so high population density and then structure and environment built around. So ano po ang malaking challenge ngayon? We are globally, ito po ang malaking challenge na-urbanize ang ating population area-wise. While it is small in terms of percentage, globally it's about 1%. But when I computed it in the Philippines, it's about 11% na po. So significant na po yun. 1% may not be that significant globally, but the whole world in the Philippine context is so significant. It's about more than 11% now. So marami na tayo pong lupang nawawala. So siguro kinakailangan pabilisan na yung National Land Use Act na more than 3 decades na po sa Kongreso, mostly sa Senado, doon siya na-stuck kasi ang ang Committee on Agriculture po ng Senate, alam natin kung sino siya, doon po siya na-stuck, hindi niya ina-aksyonan. Every Congress naman napapasa ang National Land Use Act, umabot ng 3rd reading, pero the most sa Senate ay 2nd reading lang. So yun po ang great advocacy natin kasi land will still be the base for food production. Nandiyan ang hydroponics and many other systems. Pero we believe that land will still be basic. Maraming approaches, marami nang ginawa sa kanila. Kanina napag-usapan yung meron nang nagbanggit ng hydroponics. Ako po ngayon ay nasa advocacy into rooftop farming in my house now. Hindi ko na nakuha ng picture. Ginagawa ko na rin rooftop garden using trellis crops. Essentially, ang naitatanim ko doon ang market sa bubong ko ay passion fruit at saka patola. So, sana here on magkaroon din ho ng batas na i-redesign ang mga bahay na natin into rooftop garden para hindi na masayang yung sunlight doon. There was a question that, is there really a reduced space when we construct houses? Theoretically, wala pong reduction in space Kasi when you build a house, more or less nag-increase ang sunlit area niya 4 times. So, well, agriculture or crop production is essentially harvesting light from the sun. So kailangan ma-utilize na ho natin yan. But of course, in the past, hindi ho ganun kalaki ang pressure. So hindi natin naisip siguro. Pero right now, we have to think about it more siguro. At isa sigurong dapat ipasa doon sa building code or i-amend ang building code. Okay? Na-include na yung, yun na nga, ang structures so we can accommodate planting crops. Dito ina-address natin bakit na tayo dapat pumunta ngayon sa urban agriculture. Marami ng initiative pero siguro area-wise, production-wise, sana merong graduate student na mag-research nito. Kung ako ay active pa ngayon sa teaching, sana I will encourage one or two of my graduate student to provide data for this. Wala tayong data. How much area, how much is the production of food coming from the urban gardens, so on and so forth. Wala ho tayong data dyan. And yet, malaki na po ang nakukuha. Kung mapapansin natin, yung land use conversion natin, prime agricultural lands. Kaya nahihirapan na tayo ngayon mag-produce ng sufficient rice. One of the major reason is the conversion of irrigated rice land, prime rice land, into other non-agricultural uses. Ang community gardens, okay, tama naman po yung advocacy natin ng community gardens in support dun sa initiative na community pantries, which we know they're just simply stopgap measures. Pero mas sustainable siguro po kung i-transform natin sila gardens in every household. Kasi, well, yung naipakita, yung mga mothers, nagsasama-sama sila sa pag-garden sa mga vacant lots, so on and so forth. Pero yung sustainability noon ang medyo challenging pa rin. Kasi kung hindi kanila yung lote, na-experience ko na rin na mag-garden sa hindi ko lote. Pag ginamit na yung lote, wala na. Wala na yung garden mo doon. So, paano yung improvement? Lalo na kung organic agriculture, kailangan ma-improve yung lupa. And then later on, pag na-improve na yung soil fertility, doon naman yung time na nakukunin ng may-ari ng lupa. In one organic rice farm na dinevelop ko, gumasta ako ng mahigit 10,000 in clearing and preparing the land. Of course, nandun ang organic matter, pero nung clear na, nakatanim lang ako ng 2 beses ng palay, kinuha na ng may-ari ng lupa. So, yun po ang mga challenges sa organic farming, sa mga ganyang initiative, kung hindi atin yung pag-aari ng lupa. Kaya dapat ma-ensure natin sana na hindi masayang yung initiative o yung advocacy natin. Yeah, why we need to do household food gardens, so on and so forth. Huwag na natin sabihin sigurong urban gardening kasi nga ang urban population ho natin ngayon is about 65% already, or roughly 72 million. And by 2050, na-anticipate nila makahalos 70% or more. By 2050, our population will already be 145 million. So we need to produce 45% more food than as what we have been producing now. How do we do that? So kinakailangan mo talaga mag-produce na tayo ng pagkain wherever you are. Ito, napag-uusapan yung pandemic, nagkaroon ng problema sa pag-provide ng food. So we need to localize food production to avoid seasonal price surges. Ngayon, nagre-reklamo na naman ang mga tao sa Metro Manila. Tumaas daw ang presyo ng vegetables. Ang hindi napapansin sa atin, when you transport food, we have what we call logistic challenges, and logistic is mostly transport or hauling. Pero bago mo naman may haul yan, there are so many processes involved. There's a costly packaging, warehousing, storage, so on and so forth. In rice, it's a well-studied crop. Pinag-aralan po ito, it's 9 pesos per kilogram ang logistic cost po ng rice. It's 40 to 50% or more. And most of this logistics is due to transport. Alam ho natin ngayon tumaas na naman ang presyo ng langis, okay? So magtataasan na naman ang presyo ng transport, spare parts kasi hindi tayo ang gumagawa, mahal na rin po. So yung mga nagme-maintain ng sasakyan, so yun po ang inaano natin, yung pagkain natin, yung fish at saka meat, kailangan ng cold storage. There's so much energy and capital costs. And at the same time, the carbon emission, when we do this, when we transport all our food, the carbon increase what we call energy footprint. Tayo sana naka-establish ng railways natin pero napabayaan dito sa Luzon. Hindi po namin alam kung kailan talaga matutuloy ito. Wala sanang masyadong problema sa transport kung merong railways, pero kung road yan talaga magkakaroon ng problema kasi pag naghigpit sa bawat probinsya na dadaan, marami ho kasing isda galing pa sa Piuduran, doon sa may bandang dulo ng Camarines, ng Albay, marami hong bayan-bayan na dadaanan kung road yan, kaya napakahirap i-transport, napaka-expensive. At ang complaint ng isang kumpare ko na nagpunta sa fish trade, ang dami hong toll fees daw sa daan na kahit nahihingi lang ng pang-breakfast yung mga dadaanan niya, yung kalahating kilo, 1 kilo, o kung 50 toll, yun, I'm referring to yung mga checkpoints, 50 kilograms na. So naubos na ho ang kanyang tubo doon. And then our country is an carpelagic country. Ano ang kondisyon ng mga port areas natin to handle bulk handling in support of our ROROSO and so forth. So yun po, kailangan in the context of food security or food availability, food access, kailangan talaga ma-localize yung ating food. Kaya yung ginagawa ng AGREA ay maganda po. Okay? Sana maraming ganun initiative. On the other hand, when we say food, ang sabi nga niya kanina, 70% ay rice. So 30% yung iba. Hindi ho pang urban agriculture ang rice. Kasi ho malaking area ang kailangan at napakadaming tubig ang kailangan ng rice. Papunta ako sa isang slide na ganyan. So, how do we address the land requirement, the soil quality? Ang hindi ho na nabanggit kanina yung tubig, water quality. Pag nasa urban area, hindi po pwedeng gamitin yung tubig sa drainage canal kasi highly polluted yan. Kung gagamit tayo ng tubig na pinagbibili o yung ginagamit natin sa luwa or sa Manila water, napakamahal ho yun. Later on, i-project yung water requirement for rich crop. Yung nutrients, of course, sabi natin, gusto natin organic farming, so yung challenge sa composting, use of biodegradable waste, so kailangan ho talaga ma-institutionalize ito. Pero ang pinakamasustansyang parte na hindi nabanggit nung ibang nauna sa aking magano, yung uuho natin, human manure is the most nutritious manure. Why? It's simple. Nutritious po ang kinakain nating mga tao. So we only utilize 20 to 30% of the food that we ingested, meaning 70 to 80% of the food that we ingest are simply being lost, go to the waste and pollution. So kinakailangan mo i-redesign ang mga toilets natin into compost toilet. So dapat doon sa mga food project ho natin ngayon, sanayin natin na sa mga eskwelahan, nabanggit kanina yung urine, hindi niya nabanggit yung pinakamasustansya. Urine ang ibig sabihin no, rich in urea or urease, ibig sabihin nitrogen, pero hindi niya nabanggit yung manure natin, yung feces. Okay? So kailangan ho idagdag ho natin yon na of course in my own way, siguro dito sa Bay ako lang ang merong compost toilet. Yung acceptability ho kasi ng compost toilet ang isang pinag-uusapan pa. Ang isa pang quality na sa highly populated area like Metro Manila, yung air quality natin. Maraming ho sasakyan. So masyadong polluted yung hangin, so kailangan i-consider pa rin yung so yung how do we address the challenges na nabanggit kanina, ang sabi ko nga yung una yung soil, kasi kung mag-hydroponics ka, medyo may kamahalan yon yung paggawa ng aqueous solution, no? Of course, malaki ang knowledge doon. Ang isang experience ko, pang long term ito, depende sa lugar, yung paggamit ng container na half drum, preferably plastic drums. Of course, they're quite expensive, but they're drum for life. Ang advantage ko kasi ng half drum, yung 50 cm height niya, it's near optimum. Ang routing depth ko kasi ay 40 to 50 cm, yung ideal yun. So napo-provide and then we can also make compost inside the drum. Kalimutan kong i-project dito. I'm now developing my own small garden. It's about 1,000 square meter. So into permaculture garden technique. So I'm combining all these practices and part of my advocacy later on, kasi ang plano ko, i-open siya as farm school for children. Okay? So, ang nabanggit ko kanina yung sa tubig. So, we should plant yung less water-consuming plants. Yung mga petsay, mustasa, ganyan. Hindi na ho siguro pinag-uusapan sa urban area yung pagtatanim ng rice. Although, it's a possibility kung talagang gusto natin, parang gawin na rin siyang parang decorative plant para hindi maintindihan natin. Of course, hindi tayo siguro magre-raise ng beef kasi ang daming kailangan niyang pagkain, no? Yung nutrients, well, ito po nagiging challenge din even in agricultural area, hindi nagkakaroon ng nutrient cycling. Why? Kasi yung biomass, rice straw, sugarcane trash is just simply burned. So sa mga household areas po natin ngayon, challenge yung waste segregation. Pero kung nasa urban gardening po tayo, dapat meron immediately may composting bin na doon para habang segregate yung waste, na co-compost yung mga compostable material. Okay. Kanina nababanggit na rin yung seeds. How do we address? Hindi pwede yung palaging humihingi, naghahanap ng seed. How do we make seed available to be planted in our home gardens, community gardens, and so forth? What crop, where to get, who shall provide? So, tingnan po natin yung mga seasonal crops, yung sinasabing bear crops, which thrives best during the bear months, cold months of the year. So I address ang seed storage, their temperature requirement. Of course, hindi naman siguro tayo ganun kahirap. So maganda rin yung may refrigerator. So i-determine ano yung klase ng seeds. Are they sexually or propagated through seeds or asexually propagated? Kanina pinag-usapan na rin na dapat open pollinated ang seeds natin para save seeds, hindi dependent kung hybrid yan. Although kung gusto natin talaga na talagang madaming bunga, so maraming hybrid seeds, ako pinagko-combine ko pag as a plant breeder by discipline in my bachelor's degree. Yung hybrid po naman kasi they're just simply crosses between two inbred lines. Itanim mo yan, so the F2 yon, magkakaroon na segregation. Palagi mong itanim, pumili ka ng maganda dun sa subsequent generation, may babalik mo sila sa pagiging open pollinated. Of course, yung mga asexually propagated, mga cuttings like kamote, kasaba. By the way, kanina na sinabi niya yung mga crop perenniality, hindi natin masyadong na-exploit yon. Kaya ako, isa sa advocacy ay ang pag-exploit ng crop perenniality. Para isang tanim na lang, harvest ka na ng harvest. Kaya dito sa aking paligid, I have more than 10 perennial vegetables. Ang isang hindi natin masyadong na-appreciate except sa mga Bicolano, pero nawawala na rin sa kanilang food choice, yung cassava leaf. Tiningnan po ng isang researcher, yung cassava leaf pala ang pinakamasustansyang leafy vegetable. Okay? Considering mga nutrient contents. Of course, may criticism dito, medyo takot sila kasi mataas ang hydrocyanic content ng kasaba. Pero ang sinasabi naman namin, dalawang klaseng kasaba kasi. Merong food type at saka starchy kasaba. Yung starch kasaba, yun po ang mataas ang hydrocyanic content. But the ordinary kasaba that we are planting around are the food type. Kaya pag pinakuluan mo yan, kasi minimum 30 minutes boiling naman yung kasaba pag iluluto mo, pag ginataan. So wala na po yung hydrocyanic acid poisoning effect sa ating kasaba leaf. So umisip po kayo ng 10, but I can email my concept paper on exploiting crop perenniality later on para may pasa sa may gusto ko. Yung mga pagtatanim ng fruit trees, alin ang pipiliin, calamansi, budded calamansi, and so on so forth. Pag calamansi ngayon ay mas preferred natin yung budded kasi nga pag yun ay hindi budded, matinik ho yan at masyadong tumataas, mahirap mag-harvest. Pag jackfruit, gusto natin ng enarching para maliit pa lang bumubunga na at makakapili tayo ng sayon na yung sinasabi nating latex free para masarap siyang kainin. Ang pinag-uusapan ho kasi natin ay how do we upscale yung kanina yung sinasabi nila, hindi na lang maging ang kailangan ho natin ay i-address yung knowledge or capability building ng ating mga tao na pumunta ulit sa pagtatanim ng pagkain. Urban food production requires creativity, innovative, transformative skills. But knowledge, capability building among the people is a huge cultural change from the food eating culture na palagi kong sinasabi in many forms to now food growing culture. Naging masyadong mababa at sobra ho tayo sa pagkain through industrial chemical agriculture. Ngayon, ayaw natin noon kasi nga yung mga toxins or yung mga ano nila that is carried in the food chain. Yung pinag-uusapan natin, kakaunti na lang. Dito sa atin, masyado ng kakaunti na rin ang nag-produce ng sariling pagkain. Ako, ang sarili kong estimate, again, there should be also a survey to do this. Ilan pa sa atin ang nagpo-produce ng ating sariling pagkain? I venture to say wala na 20%. Whereas 100 years ago, siguro mga 95% ang mga nagpo-produce ng sarili nilang pagkain. So, yung shift in culture po requires dedication, commitment, and passion. We have to be passionate. Kung gusto natin, if all of us we want to eat nutritious, healthy, safe foods, arrest hunger and malnutrition, ay kailangan tulong-tulong ho tayo dito, mga magulang, father and mother should use this time for bonding time with their children and do gardening. Wag na lang palaging iutos mga teachers, professors, ang sinasabi, walk the talk. Hindi ho dapat siguro na kaming mga agriculturists, although hindi lahat ng mga agriculturists, professor pala, pag ang nagtatanim din ng kanilang sarili pagkain. So sabi nga natin, we have to walk the talk, we have to be a practitioner, we have to be role models, your parents. So we have to do our responsibility to our children, grandchildren. Ako po ngayon may 3 ng apo, so yun ang aking ngayon, advocacy sa kanilang mga magulang, sa mga grandchildren ko na kumain ng gulay kasi nga reklamo ng maraming magulang na hindi raw maalam kumain ng gulay ang kanilang mga anak na kasi hindi rin sila masyadong kumakain ng gulay at saka kung yung gulay naman na bibilin sa palengke ay maraming pesticide residue, baka hindi rin siguro maganda. Although pag karne naman, alam mo natin yung sinasabi natin bioaccumulation, mas marami yung problema ang kumakain ng karne kasi nga maliban sa pesticide residues na nandun nag-accumulate, nandun pa yung mga antibiotics na itinuturok sa kanila, pinapakain sa kanila. Like yung broiler na sinasabi natin, meron pang hormone na isinasama. Para mapansin ho ninyo ngayon, yung broiler, hindi na umaabot ng 1 buwan at nagwe-weigh na rin ng about 1 kilo or more. So, mga graduate students natin, tayong mga still active sa teaching, kailangan yung mga thesis, special projects ng mga estudyante natin, graduate student, ipunta na rin sa pag-establish ng mga community gardens, tingnan ng mga munisipyo, mga city, kung merong ordinance on this material recovery facility, and may spelling kan palit, and transform them into composting bin, mali po yung spelling, and decentralized community gardens. I said a while ago na hindi naman ako against doon, pero yung maintenance nito medyo challenging. So why not concentrate more on household based para yung time, maraming oras ang pamilya na magagamit para ma-provide nila na ang claim sa isang Google net na ano ko, ang Singapore daw ngayon self-reliant ang mga household sa mga greens. So let us also adopt such practice sa household natin. Mga gulay-gulay dapat hindi na yung binibili. So paano ngayon ang ating mga magsasaka? They have to adjust in producing food that we cannot produce in our household, o yung mga kailangan ng maraming area, sugar cane. By the way, in the next 5 years, we'll be back again to importing a lot of sugar. Kasi ngayon medyo na-arrest yung increase ng sugar intake natin at 22 kilograms per capita. We are down to 19 kilograms per capita. But even then, hindi na tayo makapag-export ng sugar sa United States kasi yung local production natin maliit na. So, ibig sabihin, malaking area. Ang rice naman natin, palagi pa rin tayong mag-i-import. Isisingit ko ngayon ang population. Sana isama rin natin sa advocacy natin yung pagtaas ng populasyon, kasi ewan ko po if you agree with me, but we made some calculations already. Our ideal carrying capacity is only about 30 million. We are now 110 million, meaning to say we have exceeded our ideal carrying capacity more than 3 times. So kung maliman ho yung calculations namin by 50%, so ibig sabihin na 60 million ang ating pwedeng supportan, but 110, 120 million tayo 5 years from now. So yun po ang malaking challenge. Kaya ang sabi ng nasa real estate, hindi natin maiiwasan yung land use conversion, saan tayo magtatayo ng mga bahay, so on and so forth. Of course, dalawang pwedeng i-address doon. Sa Egypt po, ang isang ugali nila doon, pag nagpatayo ng bahay, kailangan ang pundasyon niya could accommodate at least 5 floors. Kung 2, 3 ang anak natin, tamang-tama ho siguro yung 3rd or 4th floors para ang expansion pataas, so we can provide houses to our growing population. And then wala pa rin ho kasi yung tayo pa rin ang pinakamataas sa population growth ngayon sa Asia, Southeast Asia. Ang Thailand is already 0.3%, Malaysia is only 1%. Dito ho tayo sa Pilipinas, nasa 1.7% pa rin tayo, or 2 million children a year. So lalo na ngayon nagkaroon ng pandemic, tumaas ho yata ang birth rate ngayon dahil sa pandemic. So how do we provide food to the additional 2 million children start to eat a lot of rice 5, 7, 10 years from now? They will be eating at about 70, 80, 100 kilograms per year. Okay, so tingnan ho rin natin yun. Kaya pinag-uusapan natin holistic, tingnan ho natin yung consumption. Again, my advocacy, we can be self-sufficient in rice if we will just eat brown rice or DAHIL rice, hindi yung well-milled rice. Kasi dalawang factor yon. Pag well-milled rice, ang milling recovery ho natin ay 60 to 62% lamang. Pero kung DAHIL rice lamang, we term it brown rice, umaabot ho ng 72%. So 10% higher recovery. And then hindi ka kakain ng marami pag brown rice ang kinain. Okay, so yun po. Tingnan po natin sa pangkalahatan. So Kasi ang topic naman natin ay food systems. Ang topic ko naman natin is to arrest food shortage. 70% of our food, ang sabi nga kanina, is about rice. So, isang malaking discussion ho siguro yung sa rice. Kahapon, merong seminar na naman, yung RTL, after 2 years. So, ito po, finally. So, how do we proof yung future food proofing na sinasabi nila? Ano po? Dalawa ho kasi ang major track ngayon, yung sinasabi nilang precision farming or high-tech farming, precision farming, use of artificial intelligence, robotics, drones, and so forth. Dito ho, nandito yung link ng future of farming. Okay, pwede ho ninyong i-play yun, okay? On the other hand, ang pinag-uusapan kasi sa food security or later on, graduate na natin into food sovereignty, yung kalayaan natin pumili ng ating sariling pagkain. Ang pagkain dapat ay nasa control natin mula sa binhi, mula sa lupa, down the line hanggang sa distribution. Hindi ho yan makakamit kung itong precision farming i-adapt natin. Whereas organic farming, organic agriculture, ito ang isang pagsasaka naka-address na rin yung kailangan ng safe and healthy food. Yung sinasabi niya ni Dr. Palapag kanina, be our food, our medicine, or food, our medicine is on our food. So, I think matutupad lang po yan kung yan ay ang gagawin nating paraan ay organic farming or organic agriculture. Marami yung forms ng organic farming, organic agriculture. Binabanggit niya kanina yung edible landscaping or what, no? Embedded na ho yan sa practice ng permaculture, permanent agriculture ni Bill Morrison, kung meron po kayong ano doon, which is simply organic farming with an art or aesthetics. So yung background po na yun. So mas comprehensive, holistic po yung permaculture technique. So much to learn po for our food proofing. Ang sinasabi ko nga lang, napakadami na natin. But we need to keep moving, adapting, adjusting. We are into what I call brave new world. Post-pandemic, but we still have the climate emergency. Ang tuos nila. 9 years left. The real challenge. Okay, so we need to be innovative. We need to be IT. Ano bang sinasabi ko sa IT? Innovative, transformative, plus we have to be creative. If you Google this, ang gusto nila ngayon ay smart city. So ano po ang mga components nun? You can Google search the smart city. Meron ding ano doon, video. So yun po ang para sa kanila because they're so developed, the technology, their technology is so high already. So iniisip nila kung paano magamit ang kanilang teknolohiya. Will there still enough food for all of us? As an agronomist, agriculturist, ang pwede kong isagot, siyempre naman, yes. But we need to work together. The rich, kailangan po tumulong sila sa financing. Yung mga maraming alam na, magturo rin, share yung knowledge and skill. Pero kailangan ho natin ang supportive leaders, policy makers to address the bottlenecks. Marami pong salamat sa inyo pakikinig.
Thank you very much, Doc Ted. Thank you very much to all our speakers, Father Danny, Miss Cherry, and Professor Alapag. It has truly been a pleasure to have you on our panel today. We have a little bit of time left for our open forum. So thank you for everyone who sent in their questions. There were some questions that were sent in also prior to the event. We'll just condense the questions. Now, some of them have been answered through the presentations already, but there's a very interesting question that I think can be addressed to all our speakers today, and that is, how did your own respective initiatives or communities interface with government agencies? What kinds of partnerships or what kinds of help were you able to get from government agencies in the different aspects of your advocacies for urban gardening and urban farming. So maybe we can start with Father Danny.
Twofold. Naririnig mo ako, Abby?
Yes, Father. Loud
Okay.
and clear.
Twofold. When we started, we linked with Department of Agriculture. And especially for the seeds, kasi wala naman kaming kamuang-muang sa nagkukuha ng mga mustasa, mga pitsay. And good enough, they supplied us with a lot of seeds so that we can distribute to the communal gardens. On the other hand, yun na nga yung sinabi ko, it's also ambivalent linking with government because mako-co-opt ka eh. Magagamit ka sa, I don't know, for their own promotion. And that precisely we have to be critical. It's not always that the government is cooperative. Sometimes the government can co-opt you. Yun yung sagot ko. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Danny. How about Miss Cherry?
Yung responsible person engagement system.
I think it is really a power of collective action. Kasi kami parang we were not really more present in the urban area, but then all our projects, intervention during the pandemic, it was just out of empathy and compassion. Yung magbenta ng gulay and deliver and help the farmers. But then at the end of the day, what would really make this successful is also the buy-in of the people who are implementing it. So like for example, in all the women that work in urban and peri-urban, it's really them who makes it happen. Kami, we're like tools lang and we just facilitate to make it happen, provide whatever intervention we could. But you always remind them that this is for them. Hindi ito pwedeng one time lang. They really need to learn how to grow this because hindi to para sa amin, no? Para to sa kanila. So the buy-in of the community is really important, and I'm really hoping that sustainability is something that they will continue to do as much as we can always be there, but we also want to help more communities pa. So yun yung palagi naming challenge sa community na tulungan niyo yung sarili niyo na sobrang maging magaling para maging ehemplo kayo. So that makagraduate tayo, we can help more communities. Hindi pwedeng 10 taon, nandyan pa rin tayo sa inyo. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Cherry. How about Professor Dalapag?
In interfacing with government is not much of a problem since a number of heads now and personnels in the government institutions were my former students. And I'm also a volunteer in RAFC, so I readily work with DA programs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alapag. How about Doc Ted, Professor Mendoza?
Yeah, my job is mostly concentrated in the academe. So yung kurso ko sa agroecology is adopted by all state colleges and universities. So cross-cutting po. Yung published papers, they serve as basis for policies. Sometimes nga pinupuntahan ako mismo dito sa college when I was still teaching, asking for the publication. So how to influence the thinker, because we are in the national policy advocacy also. Ang remaining o huling ano na nga namin dito yung National Land Use Act. Hanggang ngayon, sana ang next government surrender na ho kami with the present government na ma-address pa yun, tipong naiwanan na. And ang isa pang advocacy natin, nabanggit kanina, yung tools, equipment, etc. Ultimong martilyo, pako, aspili, ini-import na natin sa China. Kasi wala tayong national steel industry. Isa sa pangako ni Duterte yan na iwanan, na pagdating niya, paging presidente na siya, bubuhayin ulit ang Iligan Steel Mill. Next year, wala na siya. Hindi, hanggang ngayon, hindi, of course, yung kanyang build program, infrastructure, 70% steel yun. All of our steel requirement are imported. Ang palagi kong sinasabi, agriculture is not a standalone industry. Ang main component na hindi natin ina-address, ang logistics, lahat ng tools, equipment natin, imported yan. Yan nagpapamahal na ho ngayon ng pagkain ng magsasaka natin. They receive only 30 to 40% yung value ng kanilang crop, whereas the chain essentially sa marketing chain, yun ang po ang bottleneck, yun ang nagpapababa ng income nila to serve cheap food para sa atin sa consumer. Again, I'm now into writing a paper on the full costs of food. I'm concentrating on rice because it's our staple food. Yung sinasabi nating rice ngayon, gusto nila palagi mababa ang presyo ng pagkain. Hindi ho pwedeng basta mababa ang presyo ng pagkain. Kasi ang sabi nila, maraming mahihirap. Sabi ni Cherry kanina, there are about 7.9 million families who are poor. Bakit sila naging mahirap? Kung magbaba po ang presyo ng pagkain, idadagdag ho natin ang mga magsasaka na magiging mahirap. Kaya ngayon, hindi na tayo magkakaroon ng sapat na pagkain kasi nga naghihirap ang magsasaka. Sabi nga, sino man nagsabi, 60 years and above. Si Cherry rin na kanina, nabanggit niya, 60 na ang edad ng ating magsasaka. Wala nang gusto sa kanilang mga anak na maging magsasaka. Ano ka pupunta sa anak ka na magsasaka? Sabi ko kanina, ako ay anak na magsasaka pa. Anong babalikan kong bukid? Hindi amin ang bukid. Okay? So, yung mga ganun po. At napakababa ng income sa pagsasaka. Okay? Kasi mura ang pagkain. Iko-compute ng CPI corrected price, ang price po ng bigas ngayon, dapat ang pinakababa ay 102 pesos per kilogram. Magkano lang ang rice? Regular milk rice is only 35 pesos. So it's only 1/3 of the true value of price. But guys, hindi natin ino-audit yung full cost value, ang cash cost lang ang ino-audit natin. Doon sa pag-audit ho na ngayon full cost accounting na ginagawa namin, sinasama yung ecological cost, yung biodiversity loss, yung health cost ng pagkain natin na produce sa greenhouse gas, so much greenhouse gas emitting practices, paggamit ho ng chemical fertilizer and pesticide, wherein nitrogen is the most greenhouse gas emitting. For every 1 kilogram of nitrogen, it emits 12.14 kilograms CO2 equivalent. So ngayon, nakatali pa rin ang ating agriculture. Maganda ang aking narinig kanina, nakabase ang urban agriculture sa organic agriculture. Masaya po ako doon. Kasi nga, yun ang pinaka malaking emission na sa ating ngayon, especially yung sa pag-transport nga, the logistic cost. So hindi mo na itatransport ng malayo ang pagkain ngayon, yung sinasabi nating food miles effect. So yun po.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Ted. Indeed, no, it's a very, nasabi na rin ni Professor Dalapag kanina, it's a very wicked problem. So maraming nuances and maraming aspects that we have to consider, also particularly the value chain and the supply chain, di lang yung ngayon na food production, but there are other elements that will go into it. So everyone, we're a bit over time already. So, but the good news is we can continue our discussion and our conversations later on. We'll show you a link to our Facebook group where we can continue the dialogues. But for now, we thank everyone for the interesting questions and comments. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the open.
Ginawa natin isang araw ito eh.
Oo nga po. Next time po habaan natin.
Not short ninyo ng 15.
Yes, next time habaan natin kasi there's really a lot of...
Down po sana ang invitation ninyo kasi I'm always, ang minimum invitation ko dapat ay 1 hour na magsalita.
Yes,
kasi,
sir.
We are still on the advocacy stage. Maraming nuances na sinasabi kasi kulang ang oras sa discussion. Okay? Yes. Bakit natin nilimit masyado?
Sige, sir.
Dami nating oras kung ano-ano. Total naman, ito yung Zoom meeting lang naman. Bakit ginawa ng 2 oras lamang?
Yes, sir. Don't worry, sir. The next time, sir, habaan natin. And there are also other...
Invited yung 2 oras yun, kwentuhan. Ako lang ang speaker.
Okay? Sige, sir. Thank you very much for that suggestion.
So next time, 2 oras ulit ang akin, ha?
Yes, sir. So thank you very much to everyone. Yes, for their insights. I mean, if food is really not just a basic need, no, it's a nexus through which all of these social, economic, and environmental issues intersect. And our speakers today showed us that urban food production faces many challenges, but it is something we can overcome and something that we can all do if we work together, if we collaborate. And we highlight especially the role of women and the youth in making all of these things possible. So we have to work together. It's the only way we'll succeed to make sure that the future is really full food proof, as Dr. Mendoza says. So this is a lot of food for thought for lunch, over lunch, that we can think about over lunch. But before that, may we call on Mr. Roel Rabanera, the Vice President for Social Development of Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan, for our closing remarks. Sir Roel?
Yes, maraming salamat, Abigail. Sa lahat ng mga hardinero at hardinera, mga plantito at plantita, at mga magsasaka sa kalungsuran, magandang tanghali po sa inyong lahat. Sa ngalan ng Ateneo de Manila University, Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan, at ng Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines, nais kong magpasalamat sa inyong lahat, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga magigiting na tagapagsalita. Ipahintulot po ninyong banggitin ko ulit sila isa-isa at baka pwede tayong pumalakpak. Father Danny Pilario of the St. Vincent School of Theology. Dr. Ted Mendoza of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Professor Floro Dalapag of Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, and Sherry Atilano of Agria, Philippines. We also would like to thank Ms. Abigail Fabis of the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability for ably moderating our conversation. This has been an impressive and noteworthy conversation that hopefully will create ripples or even waves towards the transformation of our dysfunctional global food system. Hopefully, in the next conversations, wag lang 2 oras, baka buong araw ang ating ilalaan for that. Especially for those who would really want to try this in their own backyards or in their own communities. Kasi with urban farming and community gardening, as mentioned already, we will shorten the food distance and focus our attention more in ensuring health and nutrition, in caring for the environment, and in providing livelihood to producers. We have heard from our speakers the importance of healthy food as a major consideration, not just price, taste, or convenience. Dr. Ted also emphasized the need to change our farming system with a more diverse and integrated processes towards taking care of our environment and producing food for all. Given the high incidence of poverty among the urban communities, especially in this time of pandemic, these engagements can also provide livelihood to our producers. I also would like to appreciate the questions and suggestions raised by the participants in the chat box, such as the food forest in the park, or the role of community education, and that providing more support like market roads. This can go a long way in terms of pushing forward this initiative. I find these initiatives very positive development and they are really encouraging. But what is really inspiring and can move us to tears are the smiles on their faces, having full of hope and full of joy in being able to serve others. They also operate one with nature and feel closer to our Creator. Daghang kaayong salamat, Father Danny, and to all the PAYATAS ladies for giving us a model, an example of how we can move forward. Daghang kaayong salamat sa inyong tanan. Good afternoon to everybody. Salamat, salamat, salamat.
Thank you very much, Sir Roel, and to all of you, thank you very much for your participation in this session. Let's continue the discussion on social media. So please join the Food Systems Community Dialogues Facebook group. Kin will be sharing the link to the group in the chat, and we hope to see you on Facebook and talk to you more, interact with you more there. And for those asking about the certificate, please also accomplish our event evaluation form. Kian will also be posting the link in the chat. So requests for e-certificates will be coursed through the survey as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for staying with us up to now. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great lunch the rest of the day and enjoy the weekend ahead. And we look forward to seeing you again in our future dialogues. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.